Welcome back to another episode of Halftime Habaneros presented by Champions Round. Matt, how you doing, man? We got a lot of NBA action on tonight. 6-game slate. It should be some good ones.
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good, to be honest with you, Justin. I'm wearing the Bulls jersey because I was just finishing up a reaction video to it, and you're wearing a Clippers hat, which I felt was a little personal after last night. Clippers shot 20 of 40 from three. How are you supposed to win a game like that?
Sometimes you got to send little subliminal shots. I own a Clippers hat. So, we kind of own the Clippers right now. It felt like the right time to do that. But the Lakers, man, it's good to see them get the win last night. The Bulls, man, you know what I mean? They're making a nice little playoff run themselves. But we got 6 games on the slate tonight. So let's get into these and talk about some things, man. Get into some player props as well. If you have not subscribed to the page, make sure you guys subscribe to the page and download the Champions Round app as well. But let's get into it. First game on the slate is Boston Celtics, and they're going up against the Washington Wizards, who have fallen out of this playoff race, Matt. The Celtics, for a minute there, it looked like they were kind of reeling back a little bit, like they were struggling, and then have caught stride. So I got a chance to see them last week in Sacramento. They're looking like they're playing well. But before we get into the game, man, Jason Tatum this year, he started off hot on the MVP route. A lot of people had him pegged to be the MVP. And then his team kind of trailed off a little bit, fell from the 1 seed to the 2 seed. We're seeing him start to get healthy, though, Matt. You think Jason Tatum has what it takes to lead this team through this tough Eastern Conference, especially at the top?
I think he does. And when you have, Jaylen Brown in the backcourt, I think that definitely helps. I wanted to get your thoughts because I'm pretty sure, there's all these conversations about Brown and, what's going to happen with his future with the Boston Celtics. Is this a player you think they're going to lock up long term, or could you see him maybe testing the waters and finding a new home?
It's one of those things, man. When you have a player the caliber of Jaylen Brown, at some point you start to wonder, like, hey, am I really the guy or am I a number 2? And you have to prove to yourself that you're the number 1, especially when you're in a city that you don't feel appreciates what you bring to the table. Especially when you're playing on a team where you're one of the main pieces for this championship run, offensively and defensively. So it seems like he's a little disgruntled. Obviously, he's been voicing that over the last couple of weeks. I think Jaylen Brown probably deserves an extension, will not get it with this team. I think they're probably going to go in a different direction. But to me, it's Tatum's team, and this city's rallied behind Jason Tatum and what he's brought to the table. He's playing at a very high level, and I think sometimes you lose key pieces. We saw with LeBron and Kyrie. It's just sometimes it doesn't add up.
I don't think Jaylen Brown is a number 1 on a championship caliber team. I just don't. I don't think, in this day and age, I feel like obviously you need help. But when you're looking almost kind of like, the arguments when the Bulls were with Zach LaVine, I don't think Zach LaVine I love Zach LaVine. I don't think he's good enough to be the number 1 guy on a team that's going to contend for a championship.
What don't you like about Jaylen Brown's game? Like, what is it? Is it the scoring? Is it like he doesn't score enough for you? Is it the position he plays? Like, what makes you kind of think that?
I don't know. There's only a few guys like Giannis that I can name off the top of my head. Giannis, Curry, LeBron, I guess Jokic, maybe Embiid. I don't know. I feel like it's so hard, and we've seen teams. There's just something. I love Jaylen Brown. I think he's an incredible player. It'd be really interesting to see him, if he didn't have Tatum, if he was the number 1 option, how would that change things? Is it because he feels like he has to take a step back for Tatum? But personally, I don't think he's good enough to be the number 1 guy. If they lost Tatum and, the Boston Celtics were in the playoffs this year, how would they fare? I'm not sure.
I kind of feel I view Jaylen Brown as like a Jimmy Butler type player, like a guy when he gets hot, he could lead a championship team with the right pieces around him. It'd probably be a little tougher to build around him than it would Tatum. So if I'm the Celtics, I'm looking at Jason Tatum as the guy anyway that I would build around. But I think Jaylen Brown could go to a team and be their number 1 option, especially on a playoff contending team, if they had another secondary piece. So I think that's the caveat with him. He plays well defensively. We've seen him drop 30 with ease. So I don't think the offense or the defense is necessarily the issue. It's like you kind of mentioned, is he superstar enough to take a team? And I think at some point you got to prove that to yourself too. But when it comes to Jason Tatum tonight, they're playing the Wizards, which should be a game, obviously, that the Celtics will win. They're favored in this one. Jason Tatum's point total sitting at 28.5. You think he goes over that total or under that total, Matt?
I think he's going to go over. I do. Like you said, we're coming down to the wire here. And I feel like some of these star
Are like starting to play up now that the playoffs are almost here. A lot of the talent in the league in general is starting to play. The superstars, I should say, are playing at a higher level. So Jason Tatum over 28 and a half. Let's lock it in. So I like that. We mentioned superstars playing at a higher level, and we were noticing this Cavs team too. The Cavs and Hawks are playing each other in the second game of the slate. And the Cavs have been playing well, Matt. They're kind of creeping up on that Sixers team there for the third seed, only a game and a half back right now. It's Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland core, along with the bigs, is something to watch, man. They're kind of undersized, but they play well. And then you look at the Hawks there on the other side. You got Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. Everybody thought this was going to be one of the best backcourts in the league. And here the Hawks are just barely in the play-in right now. What do you think about this, man? Like, which one of these backcourts would you rather be a part of? Like, if you were planning for the future, wanting to win the playoffs long term, you looking at Donovan Mitchell and Garland or Trae Young and DeJounte Murray?
I'm going Donovan Mitchell and Garland, and I don't think enough people are talking about this Cavs team right now. Maybe it's one of those things where they're going to surprise us in the playoffs. Like, obviously at the beginning of the season they were so hot. I was like, oh my gosh, is Cleveland gonna be the number 1 seed?
Yeah.
They tailed off a little bit, but this is a really, really talented team across the board. And I will be honest with you, I've been a little disappointed with Atlanta this season. I have been. I expected more out of them, and maybe they'll make some noise come playoff time. But right now, I like what Cleveland's got going. It seems like everything's coming together at the right time. And I'm rocking with the Cavs backcourt. I don't know about yourself.
Yeah, no, the Cavs, the one problem I have with the Cavs backcourt is that it's a little undersized, right? Donovan Mitchell is 6'1" with heels on. You got Darius Garland there, about 6 foot tall too. So it's, for a backcourt, especially like in the East where you got guys, we talked about Jaylen Brown earlier. We talk about, James Harden is 6'5". Like, they're going to have to guard some of these bigger guards here in the East. Drew Holiday is 6'5". Like, and then when I look at Atlanta, it's not like they got a lot more height, but DeJounte Murray's 6'4", Trae Young is like 6'1"ish. So you have a little bit of that dynamic, the offense and defense dynamic as well, whereas the Cleveland Cavs guards are a little bit more offensively minded, right? So I think it could work because I think they're better talent for the Cavs, but I would rather have a team that had a little bit more balance. So give me the Trae Young and DeJounte Murray side. I don't know if I love it though. So when we comes to this game, Donovan Mitchell's point total, and right now the Cavs are favored in this game by 1.5 going into Atlanta. Nice. Donovan Mitchell's point total sitting at 25.5. Give me a winner of this game, and then also let me know if you're taking the over/under on Donovan Mitchell's point total.
I'm going to take the Cavaliers, but I'm going to take the under on Donovan Mitchell. I think it's going to be other guys. I think it's going to be a team effort tonight. I envision this being a close game. Maybe Cleveland wins by like 4 or 5, and it comes down to like 2 or 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. I'm not saying, Donovan Mitchell's not going to have a good game. I'm going to take the under, and I'm going to take the Cavs.
Let's rock with the over. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game between two teams that are really built similarly, right? You got you talk about strong backcourts, and then pretty good big men down low as well. It's John Collins, Clint Capella, Jared Allen, and Evan Mobley. Like the framework of these teams is pretty similar. It's just one's playing at a higher level. So give me, you know what? I'm gonna go with Atlanta and the over on Donovan Mitchell. I'm gonna completely fade your picks.
Okay.
And I think Atlanta needs this win a little bit more. Cleveland's been playing well, 8-2 in their last 10 games, but I think what we're seeing out of this team, man, I feel like Atlanta needs to win this one to prove themselves they can win in the playoffs. And some other teams that really start to pick it up come playoff time are playing tonight too. Miami Heat, Toronto Raptors. Both of these teams, it seems like for whatever reason, we count them out. We're like the Heat, they're washed. And then here they come towards the end of the season. They started playing well. Toronto Raptors, they're going to be sellers at the deadline. And then here they come in the playoff. They're both in the play-in right now. Both of these teams are pretty much locked in because Washington's fading out.
Yeah, I like this matchup. This is fun. Like, we got 2 great Eastern Conference matchups right here. And like you just said, everyone thought Toronto was going to sell at the deadline. And, they didn't. And it's worked out for them. I feel like the Bulls have been on their heels for the last couple of weeks, and they just continue. The Bulls have been playing good basketball, but they just continue to win as well.
Yeah. All those teams in the play-in, it's kind of like they're shifting, but it's like we're noticing that these teams start to turn it up. And, both of these teams, right, are playing teams, but I think they could go on deep runs given the right matchup.
Yeah.
which team do you think is better, the Miami Heat or the Toronto Raptors? Because the Heat, it seems like they've been kind of wallowing all year, just hanging around. And Jimmy Butler decided, he said, I'm going to turn it up. And the Raptors, man, I feel like we've just kind of undervalued them all year. Which one do you think is the better team?
I'm going Miami and simply Jimmy Butler. Like, I think Jimmy Butler's proven himself enough that I think there was an interview after the All-Star, like right when the All-Star break ended. They asked him how he felt about not making it. He's like, oh, I get a vacation, right? And Jimmy Butler's the type of guy that, come playoff time, he'll play 47, 48 minutes and he'll give you 30 points and great defense. And I just think I trust this Heat team a little bit more. And they got some really good pieces around them. They can shoot the basketball, obviously, Bam. And I just, at the end of the day, there's no one between those two teams. If I could take one player, it would be Jimmy Butler. And that's just how I look at it.
Yeah, and I think at this point in time, you go with the elite players, like in the playoffs. You mentioned it. Jimmy Butler is that guy. Shout out to Big Face Coffee. I wasn't drinking that, but shout out to Big Face Coffee. Big players do big things, and Jimmy Butler to me is one of those guys who does elevate the rest of the talent on that team too. And this team has a lot of experience. They have a lot of talented players on the roster. So I agree with you there, Matt. I think that this Heat team is ready to go, but I'm not counting out this Raptors team. If they can somehow win in their first round matchup, it's just I see Miami and Atlanta kind of being the teams that potentially come out of there. And then moving on to some teams that don't matter and don't care about playoffs, the Hornets and the OKC Thunder, bro. Who would you rather be out of these two teams? Like the Hornets, it felt like they were like coming on strong towards the end of last year. They had LaMelo Ball, hit on him in the draft. They're in the Victor Wembanyama #1 pick sweepstakes right now. And in OKC, we kind of all wrote them off. They have 37,100,000 picks in the next 5 years. Which one of these teams would you rather be right now?
Oh, definitely the Thunder. I think the Thunder are set up for the future. I really do. They
even with Victor Wembanyama on deck for the Hornets.
I don't know. There's something about the Hornets where, I was really high on the Hornets. I think it was like halfway through last year. I was like, okay, this team's like starting to put some pieces together. Obviously like LaMelo Ball. I love LaMelo. I'm a big Lonzo. I've always been a big Ball family. I was one of those guys that tuned into the show and would watch them when LaMelo
Ball in the family.
Yeah, I loved it. But I think, dude, I think OKC is going to be a really, really good team in a couple of years. Obviously they have Chet Holmgren, who's not played this entire season. Like you said, they got draft picks up the butt, and at the end of the day, they've overexceeded, in my opinion, their expectations coming in the season. I didn't have very much, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has been absolutely incredible. They had some other really, really good players. I like OKC. It's one of those things where after Harden and, Westbrook and Durant left, I didn't really see much of a direction with this team, but they've done a good job.
Sam Presti over there acquiring every draft pick possible, but it seems like it's working. Like, it's kind of weird because they're doing what the process did for Philly. And it seems like Philly just kind of abandoned it mid-ship. They're like, all right, we got our picks now. Like, let's go. And it seems like the Thunder are just like, hey, let's just keep developing these young players. We'll bring more young players in. And they're making some moves. So I like what they're doing, but I don't know if I could turn down the fact that it could be LaMelo Ball and Victor Wembanyama next year. And then the fact that they might be able to bring in another big name to play alongside of those guys. I don't know, bro. Like, the tallest point guard in the league, the tallest center in the league that plays like a guard, that could be some crazy stuff. 6'9" LaMelo, 7'5" Victor Wembanyama. That's a good position to be in. Obviously, they don't have LaMelo Ball right now, and so we don't really have a whole lot to talk about when it comes to players on either one of these sides. But one player who has been playing pretty well, Dennis Smith Jr., his point total right now is sitting at 13.5 points for a team, and he's been playing, pretty well in LaMelo's absence. You think he gets over that total or under that total?
I'm going to go over, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but the Hornets, they beat the Mavericks twice last week, right?
They did, and that was a story in itself right there. What did you think about that before we get into what did you think about that, bro? Because that was like seeing the way that Luka kind of took that game-winning shot. Kyrie was walking off the court before the game was over. What do you think about that Mavs team? You think it's going to work?
Yeah, I don't. I know they won last night, which they needed to win, but I don't. There's just something about that team where it's crazy. You got Luka in interviews already talking about how he's not having fun. Kyrie's been on the team for it's just, I thought when they traded for Kyrie, I was like, okay, I'm waiting for a couple other moves, right? Like, it was before the deadline had hit. And It's just I don't think the team is good enough. I don't think it's built correctly for them to make a playoff run. Yeah, obviously you got Luka and you got Kyrie, two guys that can create their own shots, but there just seems to be something off in Dallas.
Yeah, very off in Dallas. And, I think it stems from last year they had Jalen Brunson, Spencer Dinwiddie. It was like Luka and the guys.
Yeah.
And I feel like they're trying to make that move to like, hey, let's be a franchise now. Let's be a championship team. So let's go get championship quality players. And they lost all their depth.
Yeah.
They lost a lot. Yeah. They lost what made them a threat last year. And that was Luka being the guy, getting it to the other teammates. So I don't know, man. I feel like with Luka in Dallas, like Kyrie kind of needs to leave. He didn't sign an extension there, maybe for the better for both sides. One player we didn't talk about, we didn't get into though, Jimmy Butler's point total. I want to get to that before we get to these other games because we got 6, bro. We got 6 games. We got at least got to have like 6 point totals.
We got to have some. Yeah.
Jimmy Butler against this tough Toronto team sitting at 23.5. Do you think he hits over or under that number?
I'm going to go over. Like we said before, I feel like these superstar players, yes, I'm going to put Jimmy Butler in a superstar tier. I think they're elevating their game right now. And I think they're, kind of getting ready. They realize that, the playoffs are right around the corner. Even I think the play-in tournament's like 15 days away or something crazy like that. So I think Butler's going to drop 26, 27 points. I have the Heat winning this game as well, even though it is in Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, I know you're a Jimmy Butler stan. You got the Bulls jersey on over there. I know you're a little Jimmy Butler stan over there. So I'll let it slide. You know what? Tough matchup for him. I'm going to take the under with Jimmy Butler today. Very tough matchup against this Toronto defense. So moving on to the Magic and Memphis Grizzlies. One of these teams is a mirror image of the other one, just at a younger state, right? We can talk about how Memphis was kind of up and coming. It feels like this Orlando Magic team is too, with a Rookie of the Year candidate. We saw Ja do his thing. Paolo Banchero was in here doing this thing. 19.8 points per game, 6.7 rebounds, 3.7 assists per game. Matt, is it okay if we call the Magic the new Grizzlies, like that tough young team that nobody wants to play?
I can kind of see where you're going with that. I haven't thought about that, but you got a good point there.
I do. I got to give myself a pat on the back sometimes, dog. I got some crazy thoughts in here.
That's a good one because I watch the Magic and I feel like every time I turn on a Magic game, like you said, they're young, they play hard. It doesn't matter if they're down 10 or 20 points. They're good games. I feel like this team, I'm not really sure. Like, I think you're onto something there.
I know I'm onto something, bro.
I think you might be onto something. You got a young rookie. I don't like the Grizzlies, but I like the Magic. Is that weird? But there's something that bothers me about the Grizzlies.
You know what it is though? It's because they're talking. Now the dog that we knew they had, they're actually talking. And I think we might, to be honest, I think we can see some of that with this Magic team. You remember during the summer, Paolo Banchero was out there chirping away at DeJounte Murray.
Yep.
He's just young right now, but get Paolo in like 2-3 years. This team might be talking a lot of mess back. Markelle Fultz playing with a little chip on his shoulder. Like, this team might have more edginess than we think to it. Like, I think there's a lot of similarities there with this team. And, the fact that they have Rookie of the Year, probable Rookie of the Year, Paolo Banchero there. To me, they're not that far away from, like, taking a shot here in the East. We see the East is super weak at the bottom. I can see that happening as soon as next year, as them being like a playoff team, not a play-in team, but like a 5-6 seed if they can get another piece, or these guys just continue to develop. So I like the grittiness of both of these teams. Shout out to the Magic and Grizzlies. The Grizzlies are 7.5-point favorites tonight against the Magic. Jaren Jackson's on the board, though. Another young player who's up and coming and playing extremely well. 21.5 points. Over or under on the total? I'm
going to go under. And I think the Grizzlies are going to win, but I don't think they cover the 7.5. I think they're going to win by like 5 or 6. Is this game's in Memphis?
This game is in Memphis, yes.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to say it's slightly under, but the Grizzlies are still going to win.
Oh, yeah, because Jaren Jackson's more defense and offense anyway.
Yeah,
so,
that seems like, I don't know
what? That's a high total for him, right?
Yeah.
And Ja's back now. Like, I'm going to rock with the under on that one. 21.5, let's go under with Jaren Jackson. In a total that we may not have to go under, the Warriors at home, they're sitting at 234 right now. A lot of times you like to take the over at home. But the Warriors are finally back at home. We know the road struggles, but they've been playing a lot better as recently. And there's been so many questions with this Warriors team. Who do you think's in more trouble right now? Like the Warriors trying to make a deep playoff run, or the Pelicans without Zion, who are just clinging into this play-in tournament, trying to get in there? They won last night. Who do you think is in bigger trouble right now, the Warriors or the Pelicans?
I got to say the Pelicans. I do. I just think like the experience that the Warriors have when push comes to shove and it's playoff time, I think this team will lock in. I haven't really seen much of it throughout the season. Obviously, they've dealt with injuries. We're still waiting. Wiggins is still out, right?
Yeah,
So we
it
still
doesn't
don't.
look like he's coming back
Yeah,
either.
which that that's a whole nother issue within itself. But this Pelicans team, I feel like really needs Zion, and he hasn't been there for them. And I don't think this team is going to get out of the first round. I don't.
Yeah, it's going to be tough if they don't get Zion back. Zion is expected to be back before the play-in tournament starts, so they need him because they're going to be probably the 9 or the 10 seed there in the play-in tournament. But I am very concerned about this Warriors team, especially if they get matched up and they are on the road, like against the Sacramento Kings team. I think that's probably the team that they want to play because Memphis has had their number all season, and I don't think they want to play the Suns in that round. So I think they're probably setting themselves up to play against the Sacramento Kings. It's going to be a tough matchup for them because the Sacramento Kings team is tough. So I have some concerns about the Warriors, but if Zion doesn't come back, you can count the Pelicans out of the playoffs. Curry's point total tonight sitting at 29.5 points. Very high total for Curry in the game tonight. Is he hitting the 30 burger tonight, Matt?
I don't think so. I took his points over at 20. I think it was 27 and a half
Yeah.
when he was. I think it was when he played the Mavericks last week, and he didn't hit it. So maybe I'm still a little butthurt about
personal
that.
bias is hitting you, right?
That would hit me a little bit right there. So I'm gonna go under. I'm gonna say he's probably gonna get 26, 27. A lot of it for me to turn he was very passive in that first quarter, and I think he only had like 2 or 4 points. So if he comes out, plays aggressive, hits a couple threes, got 9, 10 points in the first quarter, probably gonna go over, but I'm gonna go under here.
Yeah, it's tough, man, because I'm gonna go Curry over. And normally, Curry, it's tough because he's very streaky. Like when he gets hot, he kills the number. It's 40-point game. He's over there dancing and shimmying and doing no look turnaround threes. But when he's not, he's like average. He's like 22, 23 points. So I'm gonna go with the over. Let's go with the big Curry game at home against the Pelicans. They're back at home. They need to get this one. So we went over 6-point totals here on the show, Matt. We talked about Jason Tatum, Donovan Mitchell, Jimmy Butler, Dennis Smith Jr., Jaren Jackson, and Curry's point totals. If you missed it, rewind the episode, watch it over again. And if you want to play, download the Champions Round app, head over to Daily Dozens and lock these plays in. Let's get this money, or you can play for free just for the competition and spirit of it. For Matt and myself, Justin, we will see you on the next episode of Halftime Habaneros. Peace out.